Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamer Dad channel. Today we have the Division 2 on the chopping block. Now today I wanted to go ahead and share something that I felt was a missed opportunity with Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Now, not only was this a missed opportunity, it was a really huge miss in terms of how this was not pursued, and it had, in my opinion, all the elements to actually go with it, but in a sense refused to implement it, or maybe they wanted to implement something else. Actually, in all fairness, they were implementing something else, but I felt like this could have also been something to back up what they implemented and would have at least run the game in a really interesting direction in terms of content. Now, I'll go ahead and spill the beans, and that's something that I was basically pushing for with the hardcore mode. So for some of you who know, in the Division game, you can basically create an agent, or you can create a hardcore agent, and hardcore agent was still in beta mode. So they kept hardcore agent in the beta side of things, and it's where you actually are going into the game with your agent and you are prone to permadeath. So if this agent dies, if you create one and, basically they're gone. I mean, you have to delete them and start all over again. So all your progress is wiped away. Now, this was a very solid idea. In fact, I think the current hardcore mode on beta is actually pretty good. Now, for those people who love to play hardcore games, you don't necessarily see a lot of people going this direction in the way they design hardcore games. I think the developers were a little, in my opinion, more gutsy to actually allow for something like this coming to the game. And now, let me give a little bit of background history as to this hardcore mode. So around the time when Warlords of NY was gearing to come out, the developers were actually creating this hardcore mode in terms of using a very small team. So I think at that time, Yannick came out and said, we have a team that's excited about a game mode. And in this game mode, you're going to be able to use an agent and face permadeath. And it's just a small team. It's not taken away from our development resources. And they were excited about this idea, and we gave the green light for them to go ahead and do it. And so right after this hardcore thing, we eventually found out that they were going to bring out kind of, I think, Coney Island. And then eventually we got the big announcement for Warlords of NY. And nobody really said much about it until, Warlords of NY content grew old and stale. And everybody was like, yo, are you guys going to do anything regarding hardcore in the future? Now, around that time, I made a video saying that hardcore mode could benefit from some sort of the system that you already have with invaded missions, but instead, this time, it would affect basically your progress in terms of your traversability around the open world. And what I meant by that was the way the insurgency system works right now. Enemy NPCs, the Black Tusks, will take over these specific missions each week, and they'll cycle, and you have to play these missions in a specific pattern in order for you to be able to take back areas of the map. But in this particular case, I felt that the way this insurgency would work was that the Black Tusks will start taking over your current safe houses and even all of the different aspects around it by creating different kinds of roadblocks, different kinds of control points that you basically had never necessarily seen. And you as the agent will have to fight your way in order for you to reclaim the map and be able to kind of like fast travel all over the place while being a hardcore agent. I thought in my mind that this will create an entire new game mode and a new game system separate from the main game, that players will basically feel like they have an entire Division 2 game that they were playing. So in addition to everything that you have from the regular game, I felt like this was going to be something that would really add a second dimension to the Division game. But lo and behold, the developers never went ahead with the hardcore mode, neither did they, have any intention to go ahead and continue to develop it. And I think this is basically where they, pretty much failed the community. Now, why I say failed in this sense is because circa 2021, another Ubisoft game went ahead and implemented something like this. Even though the way they implemented it is in a sense lighter, but that game has a bigger open world than The Division, and that is Far Cry 6. Far Cry 6 actually has a mode called Insurgency. Insurgency, basically when you beat the entire game, you're able to just, pretty much start looking around the world, and you're going to see that enemy NPCs start to take your, base of operations, basically your safe houses, your, I don't know, I can't remember if they call them control points at Far Cry. I can't remember the name, guys. I beat Far Cry 6, and I don't even remember the name of those spots that you take on the map. Basically bases. Yes, they're basically bases, and you take them from the enemy. And I started to realize realize that these started getting insurgents basically reinstate themselves, and you have to go back and take care of them. And even in this case, they're actually much more difficult depending on what difficulty you're playing. And even if you're playing on a normal difficulty, they still pose a challenge for you to be able to take over these bases and take your map back from them. So I think the Division would have benefited from this. And yes, it could have taken a little bit more work, say, the developers having to, put in that extra effort. But again, I remember the development basically announcing this particular mode and saying that it wasn't taking a lot of resources from the content that they were making. So why not, in that time when they were actually deploying the hardcore mode, why not go ahead and expand upon it, or have the same team continue to iterate and expand upon it until they could find something that provided some continuity for hardcore mode in the game. So this is, in my opinion, something that Ubisoft Massive missed out. And if they're going to do another Division game, it has to be something that comes with that game right out the box. For those of you who remember, when the Division 2 launched, something was clearly missing. If you guys remember very well, there was no endgame content in the game. I think we had to wait for some of the other, what do they call them? Is it the invaded missions, or is it Tidal Basin and the other stuff? Basically, after you played the strongholds and whatever, you had to go ahead and still wait a little bit longer before they dropped some of that content. And I think invaded was also something else that was there with the world tier system. The details are now mudded up. If you remember exactly what it is, let me know in the comment section. But this is just one opportunity that the developers missed. I feel like it wasn't, in a sense, going to cost them a lot of money. I don't think it was going to cost them manpower, because I'm going by what it is that they said. You know how it is. If we say, oh, well, they should have added more to the map, it could come out to be something where they say, well, we wanted to add to the map, but, at the end of the day, it wasn't necessarily something that, we could allocate resources for, right? But in this case, they were the ones who came out and said, hey, this is not costing us any resources. This is not costing us anything. And we will be very, very happy to, we're really excited to just bring it to you guys. And at that point, I feel like that's exactly where the opportunity was for that particular instance, that they could bring some really solid content to the game. But again, these are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What other missed opportunities for content do you think the developers basically, left out or left on the table in ways that they could actually continue to progress this community that you noticed and, basically you've talked about maybe on Reddit or other, forums? Let me hear about them here in the comment section. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for your time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon. Peace out.